interviewing the panel candidate forum for District 69. Today, I want to thank the pastor of this church. I'm gonna set a little house rules because we got to respect this man's house, and that's Pastor Chris. Pastor Chris, I want to thank you for allowing us to come in to your sanctuary to hold the forums for the community. We have five candidates tonight that will be running for District 69. I ask that all phones on silent, no cheering, no clapping. It's just like if you're in the funeral, quiet. And then each candidate will have 30 minutes. I want to thank the moderator, Kathy Adams, Miss Kathy Adams, Pastor Joe Flint, Pastor Chris, my camera crew. I want to thank you guys. So we're going to start this right now. Usually we do a prayer at the beginning, but since it's the interview, we're going to close it out with the prayer. And any candidate that got my letter, you know what I ask you guys to do for this house, because we're using his lights, his water, his electric. So I ask each candidate to do that. You can leave it out on the table or give it to him or his deacon when they come in. But that's what I expect for you to do. And anything else, I'm going to pick up the rest. Again, thank you. My name is Damita Chatman. I'm going to turn it over to my moderator, Miss Kathy and Joe Flynn. Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Again, my name is Kathy Adams, and I'm here with Pastor Joe, and we are going to moderate the forum for the evening. So let me start by sharing with you a few of our house rules. And so we have our candidate here, Mr. Farrell, and he has qualified and is now a candidate for Georgia State House Representative seat, District 69. So greetings. And so a little bit about what we're doing this evening. We will interview the candidates and ask various questions of them and give them an opportunity to respond. If there are questions from the audience, online and or in person, our in-person audience, we ask that you submit your questions on index cards. Our online audience, if you will, submit your questions via chat. And then those questions will be sent to both Pastor Joe and I. Each candidate will have 1.5 minutes to respond to the question, so make note of the clock. And we'll give you 2 minutes to respond to the questions, 1.5 minutes for your opening statement, and 2 minutes for your closing statement. Okay. And I think that's it. Also, if at any point in time you go over your time limit, you will be asked to stop, and we'll proceed on. Do note, and this is to my audience and to the candidates, each of the candidates will have the same number of questions. They may not have the same question. So we ask that the candidates do pay attention to the questions themselves. So with that, Pastor Joe, you want to go ahead and get started?
Again, thank you so very much, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us for this another opportunity to meet the candidate. Again, tonight we are here representing or hearing from candidates for the State Representative District 69 here in the state of Georgia. In this year's election, we have 5 candidates that have qualified to run for this vacated seat or for this seat. All of the candidates will be participating in this evening's forum. Each candidate will share information with you about themselves as to why they are the best candidate for the position to represent the residents of District 69. Each candidate is seeking to govern, create policy, manage budgets, and be a visionary, creating long-term plans and substantial growth, more so lead with tact and diplomacy. Our timekeeper will keep time as we will ask the questions as we go along. Again, as mentioned by Ms. Adams, that all the candidates will have the same amount of questions, may not receive the same question. Tonight, we are presenting information to voters in a fair, nonpartisan setting. So without further ado, let's get the forum started and hear from our candidate. Now I will turn the floor over to Mr. Farrell to allow him an opportunity to introduce himself and to let us know who he is and where he's from.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. I'm Bobby Farrell, candidate for the State House Representative District 69. Just a little bit about myself. I'm resident of Fayette County for 23 years. Currently, I'm a retired fire captain and former fire lieutenant inspector. Currently, I'm a deputy sheriff at a local neighboring county here. Also, I'm a husband, father of two sons that attend Fayette County Public Schools, and a elderly mother that lives in Tyrone. Also, I've been president for the last 4 years of the North Fayette Community Association. Within that association, we're basically a community advocate program group, 21-year-old organization that's nonprofit and nonpartisan. I'm running to make a difference in my community. I'm also upon when I get elected, I will legislate for human rights, human dignity, with a focus on senior rights, also women's rights with a focus on reproductive rights. Also mental health facilities, make sure that they're equitable and services are available. And last but not least, school safety. Currently, I am also a member of a group called Watchdogs at a local elementary school. Dogs stand for Dance of Great Students. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, as you've heard a little bit about our candidate, Mr. Farrell here, his platform. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to get started with our first question. And again, we will ask the same number of questions of all of our candidates, but not the same questions of all of our candidates. So just want to start with the first question. And Pastor Joe and I, we're going to swap from time to time. So first question. Should the state of Georgia expand voter access by allowing same-day voting, voter registration, removing obstacles to voting by mail, and making secure ballot drop boxes accessible at all times through Election Day? Why or why not?
Expanding access to voting will definitely increase voter participation. So I do believe that it should be expanded to include that, as well as it also bring back basically a sense of confidence and trust in the people so that so they will come out and vote.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Farrell. Again, thank you for joining us this evening. I have a question for you pertaining to campaign finance. Have you filed your campaign finance and personal finance reports and reported the address you've lived at for at least a year prior to qualifying?
Good question. Yes, I have. I have filed those reports. I have not filed my my earnings as of yet because it's not due until April 30th, but I will be filing those shortly.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. Should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education to pay for private school vouchers?
It's really complex. Thank you for that question. It's really somewhat complex because I'm on the side of giving children in underprivileged areas an opportunity to attend private schools. But on the other side, I see where $6,500 is just not enough for the kids to go to possibly a private school that they would like to. So, but if I had to end this, I would say that the $6,500 does take away from public school funding, which could probably end up having decreasing the funds that's available for public schools.
If I can just come behind that question. So are you for, if I understood correctly, are you for school choice
When you say school choice,
or the parents having the choice, choosing the school rather than, just the public school, the private sector, the charter school? Are you open for school of choice?
I'm open for school of choice, but again, I just don't believe that $6,500 is just not enough. It's for a child, quite possibly somewhere in an underprivileged area to attend private schools.
Thank you. Yes. So my next question for you, Mr. Farrell, and thank you for that answers. Should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a living wage?
Oh, absolutely. They should make, know that Georgia is along the lines of minimum wage, along the lines of federal minimum wage. I'm a real estate agent, so I understand that the housing prices have gone up, but I also understand there are a lot of programs out there that people can buy homes. And raising the minimum wage to a livable wage would allow more people the ability and accessibility to buy houses to coincide with the state programs, the federal programs that allow for down payment assistance. But the key thing here is having a livable wage.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So the next question, what is your position on maternal mortality in Georgia, and how will you work to support your response?
This is a good question because Black women are dying at an alarming rate nowadays. They're dying unproportionately 3 times more than, say, their counterpart white women during childbirth. I would work, which it would be hard. It would be hard, but I would work to circumvent the fact that we haven't been able to expand Medicaid to quite possibly. Right now, we have expanded Medicaid on the postpartum, the 12-month option postpartum, where women can receive care after childbirth. But I will be working on the front side, on the preconception side, to see if we can have some funding available for prenatal care during preconception.
Thank you so very much again for that candid answer. Here's another question for you. Should the portion of the Georgia State Constitution allowing for involuntary servitude of prisoners and others convicted of offenses be repealed? Excuse me, thus prohibiting all forms of slavery and involuntary servitude statewide. And if you need me to repeat it, I will, because of this old horse in my throat.
Absolutely. Like I said before, I'm a deputy sheriff. So I've, this part kind of is a little close to me because I have worked institution where we do allow, but on the county side, that is voluntary, that inmates can go out and work. But involuntary servitude, I believe that prohibiting it will be a step in the right direction to end all forms of slavery, which this is because in some correctional facilities, they don't have a choice. So this would be a step in the right direction to end all forms of slavery if we prohibited involuntary servitude.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So the next question, should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights to habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligence or abuse by property management companies or landlords?
Absolutely. They should basically make housing affordable for all. And I'm sorry, what was the second part of that question?
It was, let's see, protecting tenants' rights to habitable housing conditions and cracking down on negligence or abuse by property management companies or landlords.
Yes, there should be legislation in place to protect tenants' rights. I understand that there is some level of protection for tenants, but it should go even further to continue to protect them as far as also eviction. That should be appealed in a way that it also works out for the property owner as well, but more so for the tenant.
Thank you again. I have a very candid question pertaining to all of, we heard in your opening statement, some of your background, but the question is asked, why, what made you want to run for this office at this time?
Currently, I've been serving, like I said, as president of the North Fayette Community Association for the last 4 years. And doing so, I've been battling a lot of issues that's been going on in our neighborhoods and in North Fayette. And I really feel that I will bring something new to the table. I will also have town hall meetings, which is somewhat what we're having now, but only on the north side. I want to expand town hall meetings for all of District 69, that's South Fulton and Fayette County. So I truly believe that I will bring a different commitment to the community and a transparency that has never been seen before.
Awesome. So we have another question. This one came from one of our online viewers. If you win, how would you work with other municipalities and those leaders?
I will work hand in hand. Again, I will have scheduled town hall meetings. At those town hall meetings, I will circle the wagons and have people from Public Works, Public Safety, and also community leaders as well. And I will schedule these at least twice a year and bring in all of the municipalities, South Fulton, Fayetteville, and Fayette County. Those are the areas that are within District 69 to make sure that I can get the message from the people that needs to be heard at the state capitol.
So we have another question for you. This is also from our online audience. If you don't win, will you be willing to work with the candidates, the winner of the race, the other candidate? Would you stop working in the community, or would you work with the other candidate?
I will always serve the community. After this, win or lose, my efforts will be to continue to get the vote out to make sure this year that we vote in record numbers. I will always continue to serve in the community. I always tell people, win or lose, I'm still gonna serve because that is my dedication to the community, is serving.
Thank you so very much. Here's another question for you. How will you, as a junior member of the House of Representatives with little to no connections, relationships, or influence there in the House, and who as a member of a minority party realize your campaign promises in the face of Republican opposition and obstruction?
That's a good question. I most definitely will make efforts, great strides, and work tirelessly to reach across the line to hopefully bringing parties together so that we can work together for the people, because it's all about the people. It's not about me. It's not about party. It's about community and getting what's needed done in the community. If that through bipartisan effort, reaching across the line, I will just work across the line and work with my colleagues as well too. I truly believe that I have what it takes to basically get what's needed from the community to the Gold Dome.
Awesome. So I have another question for you. Should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring protections of the Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF, abortion, and other reproductive care?
They should.
Why or why not?
Bottom line, they should, because at the end of the day, like I stated before, Black maternal death rates are very high among Black women. We're talking about legislators taking control of women's bodies, which they should not. I will support all legislation that supports human rights and human dignity. As far as contraceptives, you should never try to ban anything in the forms of contraceptives, because at the end of the day, there's nothing left after that. You don't have anything to support banning contraceptives. You're just saying what a woman can and cannot do with her body, and I do with can and cannot do with her body, and I don't support that.
Thank you so very much. That has been for quite some time a hot topic across the nation. Here's a question for you. As a representative for the 69th district, which will encompass, I believe, South Fulton, will be under your representation. We have saw changes to our charter. Will you support only allowing city-sponsored charter changes to be decided by voters at the polls?
Can you read that last part again?
Sure. Will you decide to allow changes to the charter to be decided by voters at the poll?
I truly believe any change belongs in the hands of the community, and in form of referendum questions that should be on the ballot for them to answer that question. I don't want to make decisions for an entire community to make changes.
So we have another question from our online audience. It says, are you willing to work with the senior delegation?
Oh, absolutely. One of my platforms is senior rights, and basically the right to be able to make seniors to be able to make right decisions for themselves, the right to be able to live as they should live. I have an elderly mother who's very independent and who has maintained just dignity, and she doesn't want me to help her a lot of times, which is I want to as being a son, but senior rights is definitely at the top of my number one focus.
Thank you so very much, and I'm sure the seniors will certainly appreciate that. Here's another for you. Should the United States and the state of Georgia protect Georgians from gun violence by banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines, closing background check loopholes, and passing other common sense gun safety reform?
Oh, absolutely. Like I said, being in law enforcement, I've been in law enforcement and public safety for almost 3 decades. So I understand, and I'm certified in many different weapons. So I understand that high capacity magazines is nothing but a recipe for disasters in someone's hands who's not trained. But I believe that those weapons, those high capacity magazines should be banned as well. They should only have for people who are trained. And as far as closing up loopholes in the background checks, I truly believe that there still should be a wait period so that you can do a thorough background check on purchasers.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that response. So next question. Should the state of Georgia incentivize clean energy production as part of the climate policy that recognizes the urgent threat to the climate change that poses to Georgia's health? And let me start that one over again. Should the state of Georgia incentivize clean energy production as a part of the climate policy that recognizes the urgent threat that climate change possesses for Georgians, their health, their lives, and their future?
Yes, the question here is, should Georgia incentivize a clean air campaign? I truly believe that Georgia should have a stake in maintaining our air and our environment so that we can live better and have clean air.
Thank you so very much. I would certainly like to continue to breathe. Here's another question for you. In the political environment where Republicans vote lock step with their party's position on an issue, and do not have to compromise because they have the votes to advance their agenda with no Democratic support, how will you work across the aisles to fulfill your campaign promises?
I like to tell people there are no dead ends, just detours. I do understand that there is a majority in the House at this time. I will continue to work across the aisle, develop relationships, and collaborate with Republicans to see if we can come to a, so to say, so we can come together for the people. But also, like I said, the no dead ends, just detours. I would see that how I could circumvent some of the things I can't continue on by way of probably finding grants and bills or grant money that I could bring to my community. I like to call it dollars for my district that I could bring to the community to help for that will it will empower jobs in our economics um, in our district.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have heard from our candidate who is running for District 69 for that House Representative seat. So we thank you for all of your comments, your insight, and your platform that you shared with us earlier. So now we're going to ask for your closing statement, and you do have 2 minutes to share with the audience your closing statement and share with them how they can reach you, get more information if they want to volunteer, donate, or just, work on your campaign, and any additional information you'd like to share. You can go ahead, please.
Thank you. Again, I'm Bobby Farrell, and I'm asking for your vote for the state representative for District 69. I'm willing to adopt the problems that other people created and put forth the effort to solve these problems. During my candidacy, during my campaign, one of my biggest challenges has been fundraising. And also, I would like to know that ask for any campaign support by way of letting me put a sign in your yard or donating to my campaign. My website is www.electbobbyfarrell.org. Go to the Get Involved page where you can see how you can get involved or donate. Or like I said, allow me to put a sign in your yard. If you see my post on all social media platforms, share it. And on all social media platforms, you'll be able to get a little bit more in-depth study of who Bobby Farrell is and what I've been doing in the community. My body of work is unmatched in this campaign. So I'm standing on my body of work, almost 3 decades of serving and protecting communities in Georgia alone. I'm Bobby Farrell, asking for your support and your vote. May 21st, early voting starts April 29th.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Farrell. Ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard from Mr. Bobby Farrell, who is a qualified candidate vying to serve as the next state representative for District 69. The elected state representative will serve beginning in January 2025. And brothers and sisters, it is incumbent upon yourselves to get out to vote. That his future and all of the candidates' future lies in your hand. As a constituent and as a voter of the Georgia House of Representatives for District 65, it is our hope that you will use your vote as your voice to elect fair representation. Following are important dates that you should know and we want to share with you concerning the upcoming election. April 29th through May 17th, the early voting begins. May 21st is the primary election day. June 18th is the primary runoff election. October 15th through the November 1st is the early voting in person begins. October 25th is the last day to request an absentee ballot. October's 19th and 26th, Saturday voting. October 20th and 27th, Sunday voting. November 5th is election day, and December 3rd is the general election runoff day if necessary.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from, again, our candidate who's qualified to run for state representative seat in District 69. And as a resident of Georgia, you owe it to yourself, your family, and your neighbors to help elect the next qualified candidate to help serve and develop this community and to govern this great state in the House of Representatives in District 69. So in closing, we leave you with this. Be an educated and informed voter, but know before you go. Know who is on your ballot, know what is on your ballot, know when to vote, and know where to vote. More so than anything, please exercise your right to vote. And now we're going to turn the forum back over to our host here, that's Chatman.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to ask Mr. Farrell, we're going to take a picture with him and we get ready for the next candidate. Before we go, let me say this. I didn't say it when I did my opening remarks. All candidates that put in their paperwork and were qualified by the state of Georgia was contacted by me. How did you get the names, Mrs. Chatman? I got all the names from the Secretary of State. Any candidate that did not answer my email or contact me, that's why they probably won't be a part of the form. But everybody that I reached out to in this race confirmed, and all the other races confirmed but one, and we still scheduling. But anybody that is running for office, they got the email from me and had so many days to confirm, and which tonight everybody confirmed for this race. Again, I want to thank you guys. We're going to take pictures with this candidate. At the end of the form, we typically would take pictures with all the candidates. If you can stay, we're asking you to stay. And if you can't, we understand. The next candidate will be, got my phone. Mr. Mills is here. So if Mr. Mills is here, I know he got us another time, but Mr. Mills can come on up and get ready. And people that did not come in when I did the opening, I'm gonna say the same spiel that I did before. We're going live on social media, Apple Television, Roku, and YouTube. We don't want no cheering, no talking, all phones on silent. When this go out over the Georgia, it represents not only the candidates that's running, it represents me. And 9 times out of 10, they're not going to talk about you guys, they're going to talk about me. So I have a process. I want to thank everybody that's have come to listen to the candidates. So now we're going to get ready for Mr. Ray Mills. And he'll be the next gentleman that will come up. I know that he was not scheduled for this time, but since he's here, we're going to go on and get him here. Another candidate can come on. Again, I want to thank you guys for participating. Again, I want to thank the shepherd of this house. And the shepherd of this house, I would not disrespect the shepherd of this house. He's the man of this house, just like I don't let nobody disrespect the man of my house. So thank you, Pastor Chris, for allowing us to be in your house. Again, I'm going to ask if the candidates was not here when I asked this question. When I sent an email out last night and over the weekend, I asked each candidate for one thing. I'm expecting for that candidate to do what I asked, please, because again, we are in his house. And if this was a mega church, I wouldn't do it. But since this ain't a mega, we asking for what I asked for in that email. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Bobby. We're gonna take one picture with you and us and the moderator, and then we're gonna take a group at the end, if you don't mind. You guys ready? Who you guys want to spend in the center? This is the only time that I'm gonna take pictures of candidates. Not an endorsement. Not endorsement. We're getting ready to hear from the candidate, Ray Mills. Thank you guys so much.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome. Welcome to the Georgia State House Representatives District 69 Candidate Forum. And it's really not even it's a candidate forum in a sense, but it's more of a introduction. It's like a meet and greet in a sense, but a candidate forum altogether. We will be asking the candidates questions, and each of the candidates will have a 30-minute window in which we will ask questions. But to get us started this evening, just a little bit of housekeeping. Each of the candidates will be given the same number of questions. They may not have the same questions, but they will have the same number of questions. And we will give the candidates 1.5 minutes for their opening statements and 2 minutes for the closing statement. And you can take 1.5 minutes. You can take as long as you like to respond to the questions, but do know that we have a 30-minute time slot to get through the questions. And that's it, I think. And again, as Ms. Chatman said, we asked the audience we minimize the background noise so that we can allow the candidate a fair opportunity to hear and respond to each of the questions. So now I'm going to ask Pastor Joe to give us a little bit more information about the forum.
Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you so very much for joining us this evening for this candidate forum, or this one-on-one fireside chat, if you will. We are at this time going to give the opportunity for Mr. Ray Mills, to introduce himself and let us know just a little bit about himself. Please understand, ladies and gentlemen, that as representatives of the state of Georgia, as a resident of the Georgia House District 69, you owe it to yourself and your family and your neighbors to help elect the next qualified public servant. And so at this time, we will yield and allow Mr. Ray Mills to introduce himself. Thank you.
Hey, well, thank you all. I'm Ray Mills. I'm a native of Georgia. I'm what they call a Grady baby. My grandparents adopted me at 4 years old. Uh, I have a GED. I also have a founder of Mills Academy, which is on the south side of Atlanta, in South Fulton, Georgia. I've been able to graduate over 3,000 kids in the past 10 years. I've been in business. I currently employ 63 people on a day-to-day basis with my companies, which is Ray Mills Enterprises, which is made up of Mills Media Group, Millie TV, which is a streaming app, and of course, again, Mills Academy.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you so much for that. A little bit about yourself. So now that we know who Mr. Mills is, we want to hear a little bit how you're going to govern this particular state representative district. So we're going to start with our candidate questions. So question number one, and this question is from our online audience. We do have, we are accepting questions via chat from our online audience. We're accepting questions from our in-person audience via index card. So they will be brought to us as we receive them. So from the online audience, first question is, how will you help with human trafficking?
Certainly increase the resources and funding to be able to combat it on a larger scale, not just, in one territory. If you have done the studies, you'll know that Georgia is, particularly South Fulton, is a hub for human trafficking. So we'll definitely have to crack down on the hotels, we have to crack down on the truck drivers, but most importantly, we need the funding, the resources to be able to, get a team together on a legal standpoint to be able to combat it on a wider range.
Thank you so very much for that question. How will you, as a junior member of the House of Representatives with no connections within the House, relationships or influence, and who is a member of the minority party, realize your campaign promises in the face of Republican opposition?
Well, I've made a living on actually networking and reaching across party lines to individuals that do not have the same views as I have, by the way. So being a minority in the House, I would definitely reach across and see if we could come up with a common ground that makes sense, not just for us in particular, but the citizens that that elected us, that we're serving by far. So again, I think that in my expertise, my background, it shows that I have to work with people. I'm good at working with people. I'm good at closing deals. And I also understand that it won't always go my way. It won't always go their way, but it's definitely a common ground we can go and meet in the middle with.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that question. So the next question, well, that response, next question. What is your position on maternal mortality in Georgia, and how will you work to support your response?
Well, I think that when you try to govern somebody else's body and govern another human, I think that's completely wrong. I think that should be up to the individuals, whether it's the family or the young lady, choice per se. So short story short, we shouldn't be involved in the decision making of that particular situation.
Thank you so very much for that question. Here's a question again from our online audience. Have you filed your campaign finance and personal finance reports and reported the address you live for at least a year prior to qualifying?
Yes, my team did file the finance report as of yesterday. My personal finance report has not been filed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So we have a question from our online audience, and it reads, how do you feel about people running to have one thing to get the votes, then they change once they get elected?
Well, that's politics, and that's why I'm running to end the politics of politics. I think that they've been doing that since the beginning of time. We only see our representatives, our elected officials, a lot of times when it's time to get their vote. Once they get the vote, then they disappear. They are inactive for the most part. So when I'm elected, I would definitely make sure we have town halls every 45 days. I would definitely make sure I'm actually in the community on a day-to-day basis, listening to the citizens.
So there's no question, thank you for that response. There's no question that every candidate believes that he or she is going to win. So my question is, if you don't win, are you willing to work with the candidate that actually won?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I've done that all my life. This is my first time running, but I've always worked with individuals in the community that represented the community.
So the next question from our online audience, what made you want to run for office?
Uh, Number one, I don't feel like we had the proper representation to move forward in a progressive way in our district. With me having a few businesses in this district and not knowing who the representation was when I had an issue, that really bothered me. So once I did the research and seeing who it was, I felt like it was time for a change and move forward in a more progressive way. I think so.
Here's another question for you. Thank you so very much. Should the United States and the state of Georgia protect Georgians from gun violence by banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines, closing background check loopholes, and passing other common sense gun safety reform?
Absolutely. I definitely think that we should definitely, check into that moving forward. I don't think it's right that, an 18-year-old can have an assault rifle, AK-47. That's just insane. So we definitely need to boost our funding, boost our resources towards the gun violence.
So the next question, should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring the protections of Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF abortion, and other reproductive health care?
Okay. So at the end of this question, I definitely want to go back to the maternity question. But again, I answered the wrong question the first time. Legislation, I think no laughing was allowed, representative. But anyway, I don't think that the government should be trying to tell a woman what to do with her body. I think that is a her situation, a her decision. So I think we absolutely should be excluded from that conversation. That's her decision. Her family, her spouse, whoever is in her circle is completely their decision.
And you made mention of
The
wanting to go back.
maternity leave, I definitely believe in, at least because I'm an employer. I think that we should definitely have at least a 90-day maternity leave put in place that will actually pay new mothers or ongoing mothers for their time off to be able to raise their kids properly without having to run back to try to earn a living. I think me being in around kids or in the kid business, so to speak, I see the lack of love, the lack of injection into the kid's life from the parents, because the parents don't have enough time to actually, love on their kids properly, learn their kids, teach their kids properly, because they're too busy having to run back to make a living for themselves and that new kid or the second or third kid or whatsoever. So I definitely feel like the maternity leave should be expanded here in the state of Georgia to at least 3 months paid. We have the funding for it. But yes, definitely at least 3 months paid maternity leave.
I hope as a future grandfather, I can take advantage of that myself. Our next question for you, and from our online audiences, are you running, or excuse me, you are currently running as a Democrat? Once elected, if elected, will you change from that party?
Oh, most certainly not. I grew up in a Democratic household with my grandparents again. So I watched my grandfather, work 2 jobs and earn a right to vote, because he was born in a time where we couldn't vote. And he's been voting Democrat for 70 plus years. So I definitely understand the values of being loyal and committed to this particular party.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So the next question. Should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a living wage?
Most certainly. All 63 of my employees make $16.25 an hour or more. When the state minimum wage is $7.25. Again, I want anybody that works for me or any company that I have to have a livable wage. They're also allowed to work overtime or earn more hours, so to speak, to have a livable wage. I'm not understanding why minimum wage in the state of Georgia have not increased over the past 8 to 10 years. That's insane. But if inflation it continues to go up, food costs continue to go up, gas and everything, but our minimum wage continues to be one of the lowest in the country.
Thank you so very much. Again, that's one of the hot topics across the nation, but especially here in Georgia. Should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights to habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligence and abuse by property manager companies and/or landlords?
Most certainly. I definitely believe that it's a niche that we need to kind of fill as far as affordable housing. If you look in the past 7 years, housing has went up by 33%, the cost of housing, which it makes it, not affordable. It prices a lot of families out. So we have currently introduced several programs in the past 2 years to help individuals buy their first home. So I would like to continue those efforts in having individuals accomplish the mission of buying their first home within themselves by having affordable housing. I feel like a lot of these big companies from overseas also come in and buy up a lot of the houses and then rent them back out at a 42% higher rate than what they are worth, which keeps us from, having affordable housing in the first place. So we definitely need to start regulating these big companies on how they could come in neighborhoods and double the rent of the price of the house, to price everybody out of the affordable housing realm, so to speak. So again, to answer your question, we definitely have to regulate these companies from coming in, buying these houses. And yes, we do need to continue to introduce more programs to help individuals buy their first houses and make sure they're affordable, make sure they can afford the houses in the long run, not just throw them in there because they can get it.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So the next question. Should the portion of Georgia State Constitution allowing for involuntary servitude of prisoners and others convicted of offenses be repealed, thus prohibiting all forms of slavery and involuntary servitude statewide?
Can you repeat that?
Should the portion of the Georgia State Constitution allowing for involuntary servitude of prisoners and others convicted of offenses be repealed, thus prohibiting all forms of slavery and involuntary servitude statewide?
Yes. I definitely feel like, our prison systems are kind of messed up. I understand if you do the crime, you got to do the time. But it shouldn't be the level of work that they're currently required to do. So I definitely believe in appealing that.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much for that. I actually want to back up, if you will, back to the affordable housing question. We get that question asked a lot, correct?
Mhm.
But what is affordable housing is not answered. So what is affordable housing?
Well, if you go from the banking standpoint, you have to make 3 times what your salary is. But if your salary isn't raising, because that's what we're talking about, minimum wage, and houses are, then where's the affordability at? It's not there. So again, we have 2 options. We raise the minimum wage, or we create more affordable housing that individuals can actually qualify comfortably to live in. Again, minimum wage and affordable housing kind of work hand in hand. If you get a house, you got to be able to pay for it. But if I don't have a qualified job to be able to pay for it, then how can I get a house? So we need to have certain pockets developed in different communities, especially in this district, that will allow individuals to qualify for houses much easier at an affordable rate. So
Thank you. Thank you for that. So this is we're rounding up to your last question. Should the state of Georgia expand voter access by allowing same-day voter registration, removing obstacles to voting by mail, and making secure ballot drop boxes accessible at all times through Election Day?
most certainly, I think, especially in our community, the individuals across the aisle is making, terrible attempts to suppress our votes as it is. So I definitely believe that we should look into same day voting, more drop boxes, being able to vote at a later time also. But again, all of that goes back to them trying to suppress our current votes, especially in our community in particular.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from our candidate, and that's Mr. Mills, Ray Mills, who's running for state representative seat for District 69. And now we are going to allow Mr. Mills to give us 2 minutes in his closing statement. And so, Mr. Mills, we want you to just tell the listening audience how they can get in contact with you, learn more about your platform, more about you, the candidate, volunteer, donate, what have you. Do you want to share information, and then 2 minute time frame?
Definitely. My website is millsforgeorgia.com. You can email me at info@millsforgeorgia.com. All my social media handles are The Ray Mills. That's TheRaymills.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that.
Well, again, thank you, Mr. Mills, for your candid responses and for your accessibility to the registered voter. Again, ladies and gentlemen, you have just heard from Mr. Ray Mills, again, a qualified candidate vying to serve as the next state representative for District 69. The elected state representative will serve a new term, which will begin January 2025. His future, along with all the other candidates' future, lies within your hands. As a constituent and a voter of the Georgia House of Representatives for District 69, it is our hope that you will use your vote as your voice to elect fair representation. And again, I want to provide these dates that are extremely important for all of us who are constituents in the state of Georgia. The following dates are important to share with you. April 29th through May 17th, early voting begins. May 21st is the primary election day. June 18th is the primary runoff election. October 15th through November 1st, early election in person begins. October 25th is the last day to request an absentee ballot. October 19th and 16th are Saturday voting. October 20th and 27th are Sunday voting. November 5th is election day, and December 3rd is the general election runoff day, if in fact necessary.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, as a resident of Georgia in the District 69 area, you owe it to yourself, your family, and your neighbors to help elect the next qualified candidate to help develop and govern this great state of Georgia in the House of Representatives, District 69. But we want to leave you with this. We want to ask that before you go vote, you need to check your voting status. The district maps have been redrawn. We have some new candidates. We have new territories that are now inside our voting districts. Know before you go. Know that you are in the right district and that on election day, you will not be turned away. Go to the Secretary of State's website, pull a copy of your voter registration card. You can also pull a sample ballot. But go to www.sos.ga.gov/MVP. That will take you directly to the Secretary of State's website. You put in your name, your birth date, and your county, and all of your information will come up. But we leave you with this evening. Be an educated and informed voter, and know before you go. Know who is on your ballot, know what is on your ballot, know when to vote, and know where to vote. But please exercise your right to vote. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we are going to turn the forum back over to Ms. Damita Chatman.
Thank you guys so much. I see the next candidate is here. We're gonna go on and get him up. We're gonna take a picture with Mr. Mills. And then we get him up, if you just hold up for a few minutes. And then after the end of the forum, if all candidates is here, we're gonna take a group picture with all the candidates. Thank you. Just to let you guys know, each candidate is being asked 14 questions. Some candidates talk a little longer. They each have 30 minutes, but each candidate has 14 questions. We're getting ready to hear from the next candidate. I'm asking everyone again to please put your phones on silent. Thank Pastor Chris. Go over the same spiel. Thank Pastor Chris for letting us be in his house. And I believe that when we're in another man's house, we respect his house. All phones on silent, and you will be hearing from the next candidate. My name is Damita Chatman. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and thank you for joining us. We are moving along and we have our next candidate who has joined us this evening, and that's Mr. Daig. And I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Kathy Adams, and I will serve as your moderator for the evening. I'm joined along with, and together we will tag team and help get information about the candidate and his qualifications, learn a little bit more about his platform and what his visions and views, his values are as he governs this, should he be elected, governs this great District 69 in the House of Representatives. So a little bit about the format for the evening. Again, as Ms. Chapman said, each of the candidates will receive 14 questions. You may not receive all of the same questions, but you will receive the same number of questions. And so we'll give you a minute and a half for your opening statement. And we'll give you 2 minutes for your closing statement. And because we have a 30-minute time frame, you'll have unlimited amount of time to respond to the questions. So, but do know that we will get you to the number 14 questions. So Having said that, also we have our live in-person audience here. They can ask questions and they will ask those questions via index card. They will submit them to us. And then also we have our viewing audience who will submit their questions via chat. So we'll ask you those as well. And without further ado, we want to go ahead and get started. So Pastor Joe, you want to go ahead and kick us off?
Yes, again, thank you, Kathy, and thank you all for joining us as we again interview a candidate for the State Representative District 69. In this year's election, we have 5 candidates that have qualified to run for this vacated seat. All of the candidates will be participating in this evening's forum. Each candidate will share information with you about themselves as to why they are the best or better candidate for the position to represent the residents of District 69. Each candidate is seeking to govern, create policy, manage budgets, and be a visionary, creating long-term plans and sustainable growth in the district. More so, lead with tact and diplomacy. Our timekeeper will keep the bell when it is time for each candidate to end the statement. If the candidate goes beyond their time limit, they will be interrupted. Got it. All right. Tonight, we're presenting information to voters in a fair, nonpartisan setting. So without further ado, let's get the forum started and hear from our next candidate, which is Mr. Daig. Did I say it correctly?
Yes, sir.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So want to go ahead and get started with the first question. And I'm going to ask you a question about campaign finance. It says, have you filed your campaign finance and personal finance reports and reported the address that you've lived in at least for the year prior to qualifying?
Yes, ma'am. I've lived in Fayetteville for the last 18 years now.
Okay.
And I've lived in a set of apartments right along South Jeff Davis. Of course, I've handled my financial information and all that documentation. When it comes to campaign finance, I think we can all agree that there is a certain influence that finances have on campaigns and the outcomes of elections, which is why we have reasonable limits on donations and required reportings and financial disclosure statements that we have to make. So I think that when it comes to campaign finances, I think every candidate should have all of their ducks in a row. And I think that we need to have greater thought and greater discussion on how we govern campaign finances throughout the state, and the conversation will extend nationally, of course.
Thank you so very much for that. I heard you say you've lived there for 18 years. I'm assuming that means you're 19. Ladies and gentlemen, my next question to you would be in reference to affordable housing and housing as a whole. What will be done to protect homeowners from irresponsible landlords and tenants? You see, often we hear about the landlord, or we hear about the landlord, but what about the irresponsible tenants?
Yes, sir. So the set of apartments I live in are a townhomes. It's actually a quadplex. There's 4 housing units in one building. And so I do my best to treat that housing unit as if it's my own property. And it's one of the things I actually have written into the lease, that you treat the housing unit as if it's your own property. And so I think when it comes to leasing, renting property, there's definitely a mutually beneficial relationship that can be fostered. There have been historically a negative relationship between landlords and their tenants. The landlords raise the price of rent, and they do what they can to make a profit off the property that they have. And sometimes, unfortunately, tenants do not treat that property with the dignity and respect that it deserves, even though they are renting. And so I think when it comes to the governing of that process, that requires having honest conversations, looking at the facts, looking at the figures, figuring out where is the need for greater governance and how can we implement reforms surgically, because you can implement widespread reforms like rent control and have low-income housing be a requirement in building certain kinds of apartments. But what you oftentimes see is that that causes a distortion in the housing market. Believe it or not, a lot of landlords and companies, when they build those apartments, they're making their money off of that 10 or 15% that we require to have low income housing. So if they can't make the profits off that 10 or 15% of housing units that they need to in order to stay afloat, then it de-incentivizes building. And so what we're really looking at with the housing supply is that we have a lack of housing. The vacancy rate is low, which indicates that we don't have enough housing. So I believe in incentivizing builders to build more, and that really gets down to a municipal level. Cities and counties have a big responsibility to incentivize builders to build more. From the state government standpoint, I think that we can write laws and legislation to make sure that the building and the development process is more fair between the landlord and the tenant. And I also think that we can more or less use the financial weight of the state government to make sure things happen the way they're supposed to bring down not necessarily bring down, but to make sure that housing is affordable and is accessible for everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you for that answer. I had a statement from the audience, but we'll come back to that. Here's a question. How do you feel about people running and have one term or one action while running, but when they get elected, they change from the things that they had said they were going to do? So you're running for office and you say you're going to fill the potholes, but then when you get into office, you don't even know potholes exist.
Yeah, I absolutely sympathize with both sides of that. It is frustrating when you believe in this candidate, you believe in this person, you believe in their vision and their mission, and you put in hours that you could be making money on your own, time that you could be spending with your family, and you work to get that candidate elected, and then they're not doing what you wanted them to do. And so I absolutely sympathize with that process. And I think there is an accountability measure that we have embedded into our democracy. That's why we vote. And so I also sympathize with the other side of it, because when I first decided I want to become a teacher, a public educator, I wanted to, I wanted to inspire all these kids to love mathematics, and I wanted them to be open to trying new things. And then we get in the system and you see the limitations, and you see all the rules, the regulations, the red tapes, you realize that it's just not going to work out that way. And so I think what a lot of people see when they see, I guess, more tenured or more experienced politicians switch a flip or change up once they get in office, I think they're seeing that person grappling and dealing with the fact that they are living within a system and working within a system that, well, frankly, it's not designed to help everyone. It's not designed for everyone. And so I think that we have to be balanced about this. We should hold our elected officials accountable through the democratic process, but we should also respect the fact that they were elected and that they are dealing with things that we would never know.
Awesome. Great response. So the next question, what is your position on Medicaid expansion, and why or why not expand Medicaid in the state of Georgia?
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely support Medicaid expansion. The first one is that I believe everybody has a right to affordable and accessible health care. I know for a fact that when people don't have access to the healthcare that they need, and they're not able to go to the appropriate healthcare facilities, then that causes hospital overcrowdings. It causes an overworking of our nurses and our doctors and our technicians. And so we see overall a decrease in the quality of healthcare that everyone can receive when people are not able to access or afford the healthcare that they actually need. You know, if you have a cough or sore throat, or if you have a toothache, you really shouldn't be going to the emergency room for that. You should be going to a distance or a general practitioner. And so what Medicaid does is it gives people who can't afford the healthcare that they need, the appropriate healthcare and the appropriate providers that they need, it gives them the ability to afford that and go there. And another reason is simply the cost. It costs more to not have fully expanded Medicaid than it does to fully expand Medicaid because of the percentages that the federal government pays. The federal government only pays about 67% if you partially expand Medicaid, but they pay upwards of 90% if you do fully expand Medicaid. And so the calculation between that is a difference between $2,500 per person for partially expanded Medicaid down to $500 per person for fully expanded Medicaid. It just makes financial sense, it makes mathematical sense, and it makes human sense.
Thank you.
Fantastic. So, question I have for you here is, should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom rights, or excuse me, let me start again. Should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring the practice or the protections, excuse me, of Roe versus Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF, abortion, and other reproductive health care?
Yes, to all the above. My stance is simple. I believe that whatever you are doing with your body, that's between you, God, and your doctor, or you, your higher belief, and your doctor. And so I just don't think it's any of the state's business. It's not the state government's business whether or not you're getting an abortion. I think that when it comes to reproductive health care, I think we need to be funding safe and making sure that those resources and services are available to people who really need it. I think that contraceptives are absolutely something we should be investing in, because if we invest in contraceptives, then we don't have to go through the whole road of dealing with abortion, even though contraceptives are not 100% effective. So abortion should be an option available. I think we need to invest more in contraceptives. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So what is your position on maternal mortality in Georgia, and how will you work to support your response?
Yes, ma'am. So for me, since the last forum I was at, I've had an evolution in terms of my understanding of the issue. The last time I spoke about this issue publicly, I spoke about my 2 baby cousins who had life-threatening pregnancies. And I spoke about my grandmother who died from childbirth. After that forum, my mother told me that her mother's mother died from a lack of postnatal care. Her mother's mother was a sharecropper, and she went back to work too soon, and she bled out in the fields. And so there is absolutely a generational crisis when it comes to maternal health care and the lack of maternal health care in the African American community, particularly as it affects Black women. So, of course, I believe this is an issue that we need to address. For specific policies, I think we need a patient education program. Patients should have a video and documentation knowing exactly what questions and what procedures should be followed. And then we should have a hotline so that we can report those issues to the state if those procedures are not being reported. Because you look through the data, you sift through it all. At the end of the day, it's racial profiling. It's prejudice. That's the root of the issue. So that's my answer.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Thank you so very much. Here's a question for you. Should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education to pay for private school vouchers?
Yes, the state of Georgia should stop using taxpayer dollars for private schools. They're public dollars. They should be going to public services. If you want a private education, and as someone who works for a private tutoring company, I understand the value of a private education, but I also understand the value of a public education. And I don't think that we should be taking money away from our public education system, money that has already been designated for our public education system, and sending it elsewhere. I just think that's inappropriate. It's an inappropriate use of public funds.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So the next question. Will you work across the aisles to slow or to help grow the rural hospital closings, to grow or increase? Let me rephrase that question. There are several rural hospital closings throughout the state of Georgia. What would you do to work across the aisles to circumvent that?
Yes, ma'am. I absolutely believe in working across the aisles because at the end of the day, before I was a candidate, I was a Democrat. And before I was a Democrat, I was a citizen of Fayetteville. And before any of all that, I was a Christian and I was a human being. And that's where we have to bring it back to. Before any of the labels, any of the districts, any of the political systems, we were human. And so I think working across the aisles really requires, frankly, a degree of vulnerability and getting to know the other side, getting to know their issues, getting to know why they vote the way they do, and really trying to understand it, even if it doesn't make sense. See, I have several friends, they're libertarians. I have one Republican friend, but we understand each other and we're friends because we connect on our shared values. And so that is the route that I would go with working across the aisle. We have to start connecting as people and not just working as politicians.
Fantastic. There is belief or concern that Social Security will run out by the year, I think, 2035 or 2037. How, as a state representative in Georgia, can you ensure that that doesn't happen on a more federal or on a national scale?
Well, I do know for a fact that Social Security is a federal program. So as a state government, I'm not entirely sure that we have any major influence on that. As a state representative, I absolutely will use my platform to push for reforming our Social Security system, expanding it, supporting it, making sure that the money is used for what it's supposed to be used for. But as a state representative, I would say the primary issue I would take up with Social Security is addressing how high the cost of healthcare is in the elderly. And when people get older, the price of healthcare skyrockets the second you turn 60. And so that's the route that I would go on the Social Security issue. It's a federal issue. I guess we could entertain an idea of a state Social Security program, but I know that would be very expensive.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So the next question, should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a living wage?
Yes, we should raise the minimum wage. The current state minimum wage, I believe it's below the federal minimum wage. I know the federal minimum wage is $7.25. I do agree with the fight for 15. The minimum wage in the state of Georgia needs to be at least $15 an hour. I think what we're encountering in our current economy is that the minimum wage has been so low for so long that people more or less are not willing to work for $7.25 an hour anymore. People won't work for less than $13 an hour. And so raising the minimum wage is a way to catch those that are falling between the gap, catch those that are truly vulnerable and truly desperate for work to the point where they're willing to take lower wages. But yes, I absolutely believe we need to raise the minimum wage.
Fantastic. Here's one of our online questions. As you know, human trafficking has been a huge issue. And apparently, Atlanta seems to be the hub for human trafficking. So how will you help to prevent human trafficking?
Yeah, human trafficking is weirdly personal issue for me. See, as a teacher, you meet all kinds of people and you meet all kinds of kids. And every year you have kids that they go over to Europe, particularly France, particularly Paris, and they come back with negative experience. I have a student who didn't almost come back. And so for me, it's a very personal issue because you can see just how quickly someone can just disappear from your life, from their own life. And so I think we would need to work with our local law enforcement agencies because they're the ones that are looking at the issue head on and on the ground. And I think that we need to support our local law enforcement agencies and make sure, controversial, make sure that they have the funding and the resources to tackle these issues because you can't do anything without money. So they do need the resources and they do need the funding to actually make real change on this issue.
Well, I'm going to piggyback onto that question because you're talking about working with local municipalities. A portion of your district sits right here in the city of South Fulton, and we are in the backyard of the world's busiest airport, what would you do to help the city of South Fulton to govern and guide that process and to tackle the human trafficking issue?
So yeah, definitely looking at the regulations and protocols and procedures that have to do with travel. One of the easiest ways to deal with the human trafficking issue is to deal with the trafficking issue, to make it a transportation issue as it regards to safety. That's why we have the TSA. That's why we have State Patrol. So I think that we can absolutely contact our local officials and listen to them. Let them tell me what they need. So that way I can go to the state capitol and advocate for them in the best way possible.
Thank you so very much for that. This question is concerning transportation. As you know, Atlanta or Metro Atlanta is just booming. And one of the things that we are seeing, of course, new housing developments being built everywhere, but road infrastructure seems to be an issue. How, as a state representative for this area, how can you ensure that road infrastructure, not only for your area, but as the state is concerned, is put at the top of the forefront?
Yes, sir. Transportation is another one of those tricky issues because there are different jurisdictions and different controls over different roads. So some roads are the responsibility of the federal government, some roads are the responsibility of the state, some roads are the responsibility of the local governments. And so you're going to have to be working with a lot of different people to get something meaningful done on the issue of transportation. As far as what I will do, see, I have friends who work in construction, and what they tell me is that they are not allowed to finish a project too quickly. They are telling me that they are intentionally overcharging the state government because the money is there for the taking, more or less. And so I think that there is a level of honesty and greater transparency that needs to come from our elected officials and the people running the Department of Transportation. And I think that as a state legislature, we can work together to more or less put pressure and raise the concern with them that this is an issue, it needs to stop, people are suffering.
So let me stay in the transportation field for just a moment. Part of District 69 is in Fayette County. Transportation has always been a stickler in Fayette County. There are pretty much 2 roads in and 2 roads out. That's 74 or Interstate 85. I mean, Highway 85. What would you do, or will you do anything to help with the transportation concerns and the issues in Fayette County?
Yeah, so Fayette County gets very persnickety when it comes to transportation and the potential solutions to transportation. I won't say it, but there are Fayette County residents, I would say a majority of Fayette County residents who do not support, I would consider common sense solutions to the transportation, the traffic issue. I think that would have to come with a changing of the minds and a changing of the culture of the people in Fayette County so that they are more open to those solutions. As far as the one road in and one road out, that's kind of what people in Fayette County wanted. And so if we're going to fix the traffic issue, we're going to have to weigh our options and decide these are solutions that are available. These are the potential consequences. And what do we really value? And if we decide that we value something over less traffic, then we're going to have to stick with that. And as a state representative, I'm never going to be the person that tries to say the right thing or say the perfect thing. I'm always going to be honest. I'm always going to be straightforward. And I'm going to let people know that what I am able to do as a state representative absolutely depends on what you are looking from me as a state representative. I'm a representative of the people. That's what I absolutely believe in. I believe in democracy. And I will do what the will of the people are in my district.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from another candidate who's vying for state representative seat for District 69. And we thank you for your responses. It shared a little bit about your platform, who you are, your values, and what you're planning to do should you become elected. So now we want to give you 2 minutes for your closing statement. Share a little bit more, anything you want our listening audience to know about you, how to get in contact with you, if they want to make a donation, if they want to volunteer in your campaign. Any additional information, do share. And again, you have 2 minutes to close this out.
Yes, ma'am. Oh, I mentioned it before, but I am a public school teacher. I teach at Sandy Creek High School. I'm a geometry teacher. I also tutor pre-calculus, statistics, trigonometry. I also am a writing tutor at Georgia Military College. And part of the lifestyle of being a public educator is that you're always working. The reason why I wasn't here to be at my scheduled time was because I made a commitment to my students and my kids and their parents that I was going to be there for them, and I was going to support them, I was going to tutor them, and I was going to be the teacher that is trying to make a difference for them. And so I always look back to the reasons why I'm running and what has happened, what transpired for why I'm running. It's because of those kids, because every day I step into that classroom and I have to look them in the eye. And I have to make the conscious decision to do my best for them. Even when I have $10.69 in my account, even when I don't have any cash on me, I take that $10.69 and I buy some notebooks and pencils because that's what they need. And so I'm running because I believe in good people doing good things. I'm running because I see the need for a strong voice in the community. I'm running because I see the need for a new way of thinking, I see the need for a generation that has given up in a lot of ways. Like, that's the real issue with the schools and the test scores and all the behavior issues. They've given up. And so they're losing hope. And I want to let my constituents know that I'm going to be the candidate that is going to breathe hope back into the community, because this community invested in me. I've been living for 18 years. This community invested in me. And I'm going to make sure that I invest everything that I got from this community back and tenfold. And so if you want to get to know me more, then you can go to my website at jareddaig.org. That's JaredDaigre.org. And my website is on there. My phone number is on there, and email. So if you want to email or text me or call me, absolutely do so. I will pick up. If I don't, I will call back.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank
Pastor
you
Jeff.
so very much, Jared Daig. We appreciate your candid responses and for you coming out. Ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from Mr. Daig, a candidate vying to serve as the next state representative for District 69. The elected state representative will serve serve a term that will begin January 2025. Their future, lies in your hands as a constituent and a voter of the Georgia House of Representatives District 69. It is our hope that you will use your vote as your voice to elect fair representation. Again, as I've done before, I want to reiterate the dates that are extremely important when it comes to election. The following dates are important, as you don't want to miss them. April 29th through May 17th begins early voting. May 21st is the primary election day. June 18th, primary runoff election. October 15th through November 1st, early voting in-person begins. October 25th, last day to register as an absentee ballot. October 19th and 26th, Saturday voting. October 20th and 27th, Sunday voting. November 5th is election day, and December 3rd, the general election runoff day if necessary.
So again, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from a qualified candidate who's qualified to run as the next House Representative member in District 69. You owe it to yourself, your family, and your neighbors to help elect the next qualified public servant that will help develop and govern this great House Representative District 69. So in closing, we leave you with this. make sure that you check your voter registration status. We know that the district lines have been redrawn. Some of the areas that we thought were in our old districts are no longer in our old districts. They are indeed in other districts. They're new districts. Make sure you go online and you check the website at www.sos.ga.gov/MVP. Enter your name, your county, and your birth date, and your precinct card will come up. I also want to leave you with this. Know before you go. You want to be an educated and informed voter. You want to know who is on your ballot. You want to know what is on your ballot. You want to know when to vote, and you want to know where to vote. But please, more so than anything, exercise your right to vote. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to turn the forum back over to our host, Chatman.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Jared, for coming. I did get your email and I didn't respond, but I knew what you was going to do. Thank you. So I want to thank you. So we got Mr. Brown is going to be coming up, and then we have the last one, Representative Deborah Bazemore. We're going to take a picture with you. Again, I want to thank the residents and everyone for coming out. Thank you. Wish you all the luck. Thank you, thank you. Oh, no, how much was that? Forget something. Awesome. Well, we're coming down to almost the wire. We got two more candidates. My name is Damita Chatman. I'm your host with Citizen for Excellence and Elected Leaders. I want to thank the man of God of this house, Pastor Chris, for allowing us to be here in his house today. Anybody that came that didn't hear me, all phones on silent. We're going live on Facebook, YouTube, all social media platforms, Apple Television, so we want it real quiet. I want to thank my camera crew. I want to thank moderator, Miss Kathy Adams. Thank Mr. Pastor J.D. Flint for being, I think, the best, the greatest moderators on this side of Mississippi. And so he said, tell somebody, so I'm gonna tell it. So as we're gonna go into Mr. Brown. Again, I want to thank everyone for coming. I did send each candidate an email asking for something. I'm expecting each one of those candidates to do what I asked because we're in his house. This is not a mega. And we're using his lights and et cetera. So just to show this house that we appreciate, I asked each candidate to do what I asked. Now I'm finna turn it over to the moderators.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is the candidates forum for the Georgia State House Representatives, District 69. Again, my name is Kathy Adams, and I am we're co-moderating here with Pastor Joe. And this evening, we have our candidate, one of our candidates here that's running for seat, Mr. Kobe Brown.
How you doing today?
And good evening. And then we're going to ask him a series of questions and tell you a little bit about our format this evening. So we have given each of the candidates, and we'll give the candidate a minute and a half to share his opening statement. Then we will give him 2 minutes for his closing statement. And then we will, because we have a 30-minute time frame, we will allow him to respond as he would like, spend as much time as he would like responding to the questions. Each of the candidates will have 14 questions. They may not have the same questions, but they will have the same number of questions. And so we want to be fair with that. It is at our discretion to go ahead and decide which questions the candidates will receive. So without further ado, we want to go ahead and get started and say welcome, Mr. Brown. And if you will, go ahead and grace us with your opening statement, please.
Nothing too big. My name is Kobe Lyrics Brown. I am running for state representative in District 69. I've been a citizen of the city of South Fulton for quite some time now. We're looking at about, it's been 17 years now in the city of South Fulton. I am a family man also of 5. I work a lot with the youth. I've been very involved in the community as well. That's just about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So now I'm going to battery has gotten a little dead here, but we're going to get that taken care of. But Pastor Joe's going to kick us off with the first question of the evening.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so very much, Kathy. Thank you all for joining us again this evening. We are welcoming Mr. Kobe Brown, who is a candidate for State Representative number 69. Again, ladies and gentlemen, in this year's election, we have 5 candidates that have qualified to run for this for this seat, excuse me. All of the candidates will be participating in this evening's forum. Each candidate will share information with you about themselves as to why they are the better candidate for the position to represent the residents of District 69. As we have heard from Mr. Brown already, each of the candidates is seeking to govern, create policy, manage budgets, and be a visionary creating long-term plans for sustainable growth, more so lead with tact and diplomacy. Again, we do have a timekeeper that will keep us on time. And understand, ladies and gentlemen, this is a fair, nonpartisan setting. We do not endorse any candidate specifically, but we're here to show you and let you know who is out there. And as Kathy said, I guess I'll just join right in the questions. So your first question is, should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a living wage?
Absolutely. So at this time right now, you're talking about math, right? If somebody is paying me $5, but my home cost is $10 a month, simple math, right? I need more money in order to actually live in this home. You have to raise my pay. That's just common sense. So I'm definitely on board for that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response. So the next question, should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring protections of Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF abortion, and other reproductive health care?
Yes. It goes back to what I just said. Even with housing, just simple math. Just living in this city, in this state, period alone. If someone is going through a situation and they might need more time, of course you need to spend that in order for them to survive. Maybe they have more children as well. Just being able to survive or in their current situation is definitely a must.
Thank you so much, Mr. Brown, for that response. Mr. Brown, what makes you qualified to run in this race and to represent the citizens of District 69?
I'm willing to listen. Even my platform is Real Leaders Listen. I'm willing to listen. My answers might even be short, but my listening skills are very long. So everything that you would be asking me right now would be about the people. I can't answer these questions if I haven't listened to the people as far as to what they want, what their needs are. So that's the biggest thing that I want to do is listen. I can't lead anyone if I haven't listened to exactly how they want me to lead.
Thank you. Thank you for that response. So the next question, have you filed your campaign finance and personal finance reports and reported the address you've lived in for at least the prior year before you qualified?
Yes, ma'am.
Both.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Like you said, short answers.
Short answers. Short answers. Let me listen to something. I can show you how good I can listen.
Short. Okay.
Gotcha. Here's a question for you pertaining to if, in fact, you should serve in this position. Are there any particular committees that you would like to serve on? And if so, why?
All committees. Everything in this world that we're talking about in this state, the district that I'm running is all about the people. So how can we do anything for a person of any kind if we're not connecting with other people? This is all about the people, so there's different organizations and different groups. I have to go out there and shake hands and meet with them and come together to see what we can absolutely do for the people. We have to come together.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that response. So how will you work across the aisles to slow the closing of the rural hospitals in Georgia?
Now, that again is coming together. We know the equality of the people is more important than anything in the world. So when we're talking about expanding insurance and Medicaid and different things like that, where they're using the medical, we don't have the hospitals for them to take them to, right? So a lot of those things are just connecting with people in order to figure out a plan, how we can plot and strategize things to make sure that the people have places to go, to get those needs that they need met. Just connecting with people, as many people as I can. When it comes to the people, that shouldn't be a line cross. Oh, I can't mess with that person or this person. I have to mess and have to connect with everybody in order for the greatness of the people. It's all about the people, not about my ego or anybody else's ego. We have to come together, period.
Thank you so much. As you may know, Governor Kemp at some point last year put into play issues concerning gun laws and the ability to be able to buy a weapon. So my question is, should the United States and the state of Georgia protect Georgians from gun violence by banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines, closing background check loopholes, and passing other common sense gun safety reform?
Absolutely. When we view the news or we hear about a certain situation that's evolving around a community or the world itself, the majority of people are dying at the hands of other people of weapons. We have to control that, especially with our youth. Our youth are passing away with gun violence. Gun violence. They're taking them to school. They're doing all type of different things. Even in households, there are actually a lot of situations where there have been accidental deaths with guns. So we absolutely have to figure out a plan where we can stop all of those things, because it saves lives, of course, and we need lives in order to continue this world, right?
Okay, thank you for that response. So the next question, should the state of Georgia expand Medicaid? Why or why not?
Well, of course they should. Again, we need lives. We have to have people here. Again, my answers might be short, but everything that I'm saying is all about people. This world itself is built upon people. Hospitals, doctors, lawyers, I mean, you name it. This is God's design, the ultimate design. The ultimate blueprint is people. So we definitely have to make sure that people are here and here as long as we can keep them here.
Always short and sweet. Here's a question for you. You are currently running as a Democrat, correct?
Correct.
So as a Democrat that is running for office, once you are elected, will you get in office and change your coat?
No, absolutely not change my coat. What I'm gonna do that for? I like the coat I'm in. So at the end of the day, again, it's still about people. I'm still going to connect and work with other people as much as I can, whether they be Republican or whatever. But as far as my position, I'm gonna stand on what I believe in. Period. You know, that's like changing my religion. You know, changing my God. I would never do that. My God is my God. My position is my position.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'm going to ask you a little bit about affordable housing.
Mhm.
Should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights to habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligence or abuse by property management companies or landlords?
And the question was again?
What's your position on affordable housing? And
Okay.
the back half of that, it's a two-part question,
Right. That's why I was
is
asking. What's
about
the
the
question?
abuse of property management companies or landlords.
I'm all about affordable housing. Like I said, I'm all about that. There are certain situations that happen and occur when you're dealing with landlords and tenants. So many different things that occur. There's a lot of different things we can do, and actually to what's the word I'm looking for, to crack down on some of those things that do happen. But that's just a conversation. That's just a relationship as well. but affordable housing is definitely a must, especially in these day and times. And of course, definitely raising the minimum wage bar. If that answers the question.
We appreciate your answer. Just a moment. Here's a question for you. Should the portion of the Georgia State Constitution allowing for involuntary servitude of prisoners and other convicted of offenses be repealed, thus prohibiting all forms of slavery and involuntary servitude statewide?
Absolutely. I honestly think everybody, well, some people have had enough of slavery. Even if we haven't experienced the other form of slavery, we're still experiencing slavery within this day and time. And when somebody does do something wrong, I mean, do we just put them down for the rest of their life? Do they not get a second chance? You know, sometimes we all might need even a third chance for that matter, because we're still growing in the process like we all are. We're growing, we're learning, we're getting wiser, getting better. So some people need a chance. Especially in some cases with that stops them from even voting or even having a voice, which again is a form of slavery to me when you take something from someone that is their right.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that response. So I'm going to ask you another question.
Mhm.
What is your position on maternal mortality and in Georgia?
Mhm.
And how will you work to support your response?
That's always I'm not gonna say it's a tough question. Tough, touchy topic. But I would definitely work as hard as I can with as many people as possible to correct that issue, if that makes sense.
For that question. Concerning going back to the private or concerning prisons.
Mhm.
I have a question concerning the privatization of prisons. And what can we do, if you will, concerning the rate of prisons in the state? I'm sorry, I kind of lost my thought there. But in the state of Georgia, there are 47,000 current persons in prison.
Mhm.
Whether it be for what is it, a non how do you call it, a nonviolent crime or any other crime, but there are 47,000 prisons. And there's this known thing about the school to prison pipeline.
Mhm.
And so apparently at third grade, they're already building prisons based on the population that is in third grade. So how, as a state representative, will you assist in combating that type of rhetoric, building prisons based on the population?
Like I said it before, it's we're living now in modern day slavery. I hate to say it, but we are. And as we go back to what we were talking about with the gun violence, or shall I say, those type of things are put into play. We need to address that part as far as with guns. So most people are in prison, whether it's for murder, or different things like that as well, right? So if we're taking out of that with the guns, we can drop a rate of people going to jail as well, or different type of crimes. If we're looking at affordable housing and we're looking at raising minimum wage, see, all of these things, if you really think about it, are all connected. All of them are all connected. So affordable housing, raising minimum wage. So you're talking about people that are committing crimes because they're not getting enough funds. They're not wanting to go to work, not for the wage that's out here now. So they're thinking of many ways to actually make money. And a lot of them are not being entrepreneurs, right? They're dropping out of school as well. And a lot of them are turning to a lot of crimes in order to make enough money so they can feed their families, take care of their families, or whatnot. It's a right or wrong type of thing, right? And then you're talking about guns as well. So we're talking about prisons that are being built because these things are in play. It's almost like it's structured that way for again, modern day slavery. So my thing is, again, just communicating with the community, talking with the people, definitely also talking with families and especially the youth as well, and trying to come up with a solution. We need to talk to a lot of our family members and our children that might even possibly be dealing with mental illness. That's a whole nother situation, but the same. When you're dealing with guns and you're dealing with all type of crimes and different things like that, most people that are in prison are dealing with different things that are mental, you know? So just coming together with the people and the family members and different things like that, just the community as a whole, we're just trying to figure out what we can do. And we might not need those prisons built like that.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that response. So this is your last question.
Mhm.
So should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education to pay for private school vouchers? Why or why not?
Why would they take from one for another? Why would it be separated like that? That doesn't make sense to me at all, right? Um, Taking from public schools for private schools. Most people, and again, all of these things are attached, people. Modern day slavery, I'm sorry to say it, it's just when you're taking from a public school where there are people that cannot afford private schools, you understand? So again, that minimum wage thing, again, affordable housing, again, the prison system, all of these things are attached. If you really think about it, I hope I don't sound too off, but all of these things are attached. It's almost as if they're setting everything up for us to actually be imprisoned, enslaved, and everything else. I'm all about the people. We have to find some type of solution to open the people's eyes up to exactly what's going on behind the scene at those tables. You know, we know the tables I'm talking about, the table that I'm trying to get a seat at. I'm trying to get there in order to listen and change things around for our people because they're attacking us. Little do we know.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So to our listening audience and our live in-person audience, you've just heard from our candidate who's vying to become the next state representative, District 69 representative. And we want to hear a little bit more about Mr. Brown in his closing statement. So you have 2 minutes to give us in your closing statement why you are the best candidate, the better candidate, how our listening audience or our audience period overall can reach you. Can they donate to you? Can they volunteer? Any information that you'd like to share with them, why they should vote for you.
I am a listener. I'm definitely going to listen to your concerns, your needs. I know what you're going through because I am also a citizen. Whether I'm on this platform or not, I am still a human being. I am still one that has to go through the loopholes of these laws and different things as well. So no matter what, I'm no different than you are. So we can become a family together, work together, and try to make a difference, try to be a change together. But I can't do it alone, and you can't do it alone. We all need one another. We have to come together. That's what this panel is. A bunch of people that has came together in the house of God as well. It's under that one roof. That's what we all supposed to do. We're supposed to come together under this one umbrella, which is the world, and come together and make change and be here for one another. That's the blueprint of God. I'm just a man of God. So that's my platform, to be honest with you. You can reach me at www.KobeLyricsBrown for state representative, District 69. Lyrics, L-Y-R-I-X, Kobe, C-O-B-I-E. Last name Brown, spelled the same as the color. Reach out to me. Let's talk, and let's try to make change. Definitely make sure you come out and vote. Early voting starts April the 29th. Make sure you come out and vote also May the 21st. Come put your 2 cents in and let's make some change.
Thank you.
Well, thank you again, Mr. Brown, for your response and for coming out this evening to give our audience, both live and listening, an opportunity to know who you are. The elected state representative, ladies and gentlemen, will serve a term that will begin January 2025. Their future lies in your as a constituent and voter of the Georgia House of Representatives for District 69. It is our hope that you will use your vote as your voice to elect fair representation. And Mr. Brown stole some of my thunder there by telling you when the dates to vote are. The dates of voting are April 29th through May 17th is early voting. May 21st is the primary election day. June 18th is the primary runoff election. October 15th through November 1st is early voting in person begins. October 25th is the last day to request an absentee ballot. October 19th and 26th are Saturday voting. October 20th and 27th are Sunday voting. November 5th is election day, and December 3rd, general election runoff if necessary.
So thank you very much. And as a resident of the Georgia House of Representatives, District 69, you owe it to yourself, your family, and your neighbors to help elect the next qualified public servant that will develop and govern this great state of Georgia, House of Representatives, District 69. And we know that there are a lot of new maps that are out, a lot of districts have been redrawn. So what we ask of you is know before you go. Go to the Secretary of State's website and pull a copy of your voting precinct card. www.sos.ga.gov/MVP. Know who is on your ballot, know what is on your ballot, know when to vote, and know where to vote. More so than anything, exercise your right to vote. Thank you for joining us this evening, and now I'm going to turn the forum back over to our host, Ms. Damita Chatman.
Thank you guys so much. We're going to take some pictures with Mr. Brown. This is not endorsement, but we're doing this for each candidate. Thank you, Mr. Brown, for coming. Nice meeting you. You ready? Again, I want to thank everybody that came out. We got one more, and then we have the close of this interview panel. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations, Lee. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good luck. Good luck.
See, I know you're gonna do it, so thank you.
A horse and a cow.
That's not something. I'm gonna get you one. Okay, thank you, man. Good. I'm like, I'm gonna get them, keep saying the vacated seat. I know. That was good. I'll sit back and look at this. It's not.
I know he keeps trying to slip out.
Oh, I understand.
Testing, testing.
When, today?
Yeah, you missed.
Yeah, they did change it. Okay. That one? Cause the one that had the straight battery is the one back there. They switched it at the table. They switched it at the table. There was a 4-o'clock power. You gave them the,
Listen, and I
you
tried
were white back.
it was so bad, and I was in a problem, so it was. I left 450 and still gave the 5.
Wow, yeah, it was like Those flames was like, it wasn't moving. I was like, what is going on? Then when we got up there, there were four cars, where the three of them were attached, and one was on the side. I was like, okay.
God love it, man.
Well,
Metro, I should say.
One, two, testing, test. Mic check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Well, we coming down to the close of. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's all right. It's been a long day. What Shirley Caesar say, hold my mule, I'ma hold it, I'ma hold it. Oh, shucks, somebody say they need some greens, beans, and what you say? Potatoes and tomatoes. They talking about us, but that's all right. I'm gonna cook them a meal, on that next forum, the 30th. We gonna sit down and fellowship. Yeah, I'm gonna cook a meal. I might have to be in Miss Work that day, but I'm gonna cook us a meal.
Fish and 5 loaves of bread. We'll see what
It's on the camera.
it might not make it.
I know my cameraman, he's from Jamaica, but I'm gonna give him some from Alabama. He been talking about Alabama so much, I'm gonna bring him some collard greens. I ain't gonna bring him no pigtails.
You did great.
Oh, we gonna have the pigtails. I'm not a turkey person. I like a little fat bag.
I was stationed in Mississippi. There was a place called Divine Spring.
All right. Whatever you do, I heard my pastor say, whatever you do, have fun with it. So we having the fun with it. Miss Jewel Johnson looked at me and she ate at my house when we was fighting for city. So Miss Jewel, you gonna break bread with me. I know you like black-eyed peas, so I'm gonna cook you a little black-eyed peas. Oh, Lord, she done got bougie over there. She done got bougie over there in La Gloma. That's what they do in District. That's what they do in District 1, Pastor. Some of them, she talking about Cajun.
Some of that Jamaican.
Yeah. Well, we're coming to the end now, and I want to thank the listeners and for listening. My name is Damita Chatman. I'm with Citizens for Excellence in Elected Leaders. Everyone that attended this forum tonight was invited, and everybody confirmed. Everybody that's running on the ballot, either I contact them through email, I sent text, and called. Everybody was invited to take part in all the forums. The next forum that we will have will be April 29th. And that's the clerk, Fulton County Superior Clerk. My name is Damita. I want to thank the man of this house, Pastor Chris, for allowing us to be here. I want to thank my moderators for the next 30 minutes, Kathy Adams and Pastor J.D. Flint. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to them.
Greetings, the Adams, and I am one of the moderators this evening. I will co-moderate with Pastor Joe, and together we will help to gain some insight on the candidate that is running for re-election of the seat as state representative for District 69 in the Georgia House of Representatives. So a little bit about the format for this evening. The candidate will have 1.5 minutes to share an opening statement. She will have 2 minutes for a closing statement. And because we have a 30-minute time frame, she will be given 30 minutes to respond to the questions. So there is no time limit on individual questions. Each of the candidates will have 14 questions. So she will have 14 questions, may not be the same questions, but they will be the same number of questions. So I'd like to go ahead and turn this over to Pastor Joe, if you will.
Thank you again, Kathy, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us this evening as we interview and get to know a little more about the candidates for Georgia State Representative District 69. In this year's election, ladies and gentlemen, we have 5 candidates that have qualified to run for this seat. All of the candidates will be participating in this evening's forum. Each candidate will share information with you about themselves as to why they are the better candidate for the position to represent the District of 69. Each candidate, as you know, is seeking to govern, create policy, manage budgets, and to be a visionary creating long-term plans for sustainable growth, more so lead with tact and diplomacy. Again, we have a timekeeper who will keep up with the time. And ladies and gentlemen, one last thing I want you to know that this is a fair, nonpartisan setting. We do not endorse any specific candidate. We just bring you them so that they can inform you of who they are. So without further ado, let's get the forum started and hear from our next candidate, which is Representative Bazemore.
Good evening, and thank you, Pastor Flint, Kathy Adams, and thank you, Damita Chatman, for this opportunity. So I just want to let you all know, those of you that may not, but some of you do know me already. I am State Representative Deborah Bazemore, representing District 69 at this time, where it was 63 prior. It encompasses a portion of Union City, City of South Fulton, which I helped to create, and Fayetteville. Also, I am a retired individual. Because I am a retired individual, it gives me the opportunity to have the time to dedicate to my constituents all the time and to be at the Georgia General Assembly fighting for my constituents. I currently am a Henry Toll Fellow. I have an honorary doctorate degree. I am Deputy Whip, was Chief Deputy Whip on the Democratic House team, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Fulton County Delegation, and I'm the Vice Chair and was the Chair for the City of South Fulton Delegation, which I helped to create, which I created. I sit on Governmental Affairs, Human Relations and the Agent, Intergovernmental Coordination, Natural Resources and Environment, and Small Business Development. Some of the legislation that I worked on was, and I see I'm running out of time, so we're going to get to that in a minute.
So thank you. Thank you so much, Representative Bazemore. So let's go ahead and get started at the evening. And again, we have 30 minutes to ebb and flow through the questions. Again, you will have 14 questions and may not be the same questions as some of the others, but there will be 14. So the first question, should the state of Georgia raise minimum wage to a living wage? Why or why not?
So we have been fighting, my colleagues and I, to have the minimum wage raised. I heard someone say that the minimum wage here in the state was $7.25. It's actually $5.15. And we have partnered with several different organizations to help us fight for the increase in minimum wage. There's not an appetite, unfortunately, for those that are in control, because as you know, the other side has the numbers and we don't. But what we do is we publicize and we work together and we do press conferences and we make sure the information is out there so that our constituents understand what's going on. And we continue to fight. We continue to have the discussion. We continue to have our own committee meetings because they are restricting our hands from having committee meetings because they don't want you to know that they are holding us back from helping our constituents to get a livable wage. And right now, a livable wage would be $27.86. And if you don't know, because I sat on the study committee for housing, the minimum wage, the minimum amount of a home right now is $340,000. And that is because investors are coming in and they are taking over, buying up the homes. And I found out during that study committee that, in fact, they targeted my district and bought 60% of the homes in my district. And then what they do is they hold on to those homes for 5 years and they get all their money out of it and then they walk away. And then we're left with what they walked away. Right now, there are not enough units on the market because we don't have municipalities have restrictions on the different codes that they have. So that causes us not to, the builders not to be able to build certain homes a certain way, and the proximity of the homes. There are so many different variables to this thing, but we have attacked this issue. This is a crisis right now. We don't have enough units on the market to even allow people to even purchase, even if they have the money. And we are growing by leaps and bounds every year. There are at least 1 million people coming and moving into Georgia every year. And so we need to relax something. And what I've done is I've co-sponsored some bills to help move the needle forward. And of course, it's not going to satisfy everybody, but we have to start somewhere. And so that's what we're doing now. So several bills have been introduced, and I am co-sponsoring, or I voted for those bills so that we can get some more homes on the market and people can realize the American dream.
As you've heard it, thank you so very much from Representative Bazemore. 1 million people are moving to Georgia, so we are full. Please stop coming. Our next question this evening would, what are your top 3 legislative priorities in the upcoming session?
So one of the things that you all mentioned early on was human trafficking. And I don't know how many are aware, but most people probably are, that I have been working on this issue for 5 years. The reason why I asked to be connected was because at the time, and even now, my district bumps up against the busiest airport in the world. And there are over 30 hotels in College Park. And what I've done is I have brought the individuals that can make a difference to my district 3 times. The last event that I had at the GICC, I had the mayors of the city of South Fulton, the mayor of College Park, I had the DA there, I had the sheriff there, I had the superintendent of schools there, and I had the First Lady of Georgia. Some may cringe when I say that. However, she has the resources. And who are we trying to help? Our children. Our children. The other thing that we continue to work on is Medicaid expansion. And I don't know if you heard the address from our governor at the beginning of the session. He claimed he was going to expand Medicaid. Have you heard anything else about it? He has not done it. He continues to have waivers and vouchers, and then they call that expansion. That is not expansion. And then also, but we're not going to stop the fight. And also, I talked about the housing, and I sit on governmental affairs that deals with the election. I sit there and I listen to the other side of the aisle. Every day we have a committee meeting. They are changing all the rules. Now, I know I heard them say, especially Secretary of State, he said the election was secure and it was accurate. Because if it was not, I wouldn't have my seat right now. Everybody that ran that year would not be seated. And so they keep changing though. What they're trying to do now is they are trying to eliminate the Secretary of State because he did not abide by the request. So we have every time we have the same individuals, and I implore you, please come out. Please come to committee meeting. Sign up and speak, because we have the same people that are advocating for all of these changes that are taking place. It's not necessary for the changes. They don't want us to have absentee ballots, because what happened was when we had absentee ballots, what happened? We sent Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff right up there to DC, and the President of the United States. So they're doing away with that, doing away with the mail-in ballot, doing away with everything, because they want to tie our hands. And when you are desperate to stay in control, you will do anything. And as we move through the session, we have rules. Let me back up. We have rules that we vote on at the beginning of the session, and we have to vote on them. The rules are not for us. So as we move forward, and when they see they don't have the numbers, they start changing the rules midway. We have to abide by the rules, but they don't.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So the next question, how will you work to improve access to quality health care and affordable education in your district?
So quality health care goes back to expanding Medicaid. As it's been said, we see that the hospitals are closing left and right. In the rural areas right now, there are not even doctors there. They're not even OBGYNs there. These people have to travel 20 to 30 miles just to get to a hospital for health care, because our governor does not want to accept the billions of dollars that President Barack Obama allowed for each state to get. So we are leaving billions of dollars on the table every year. And we are playing with our constituents' health and life. And so as these hospitals close, what happens is people lose their jobs, they lose their houses, they lose their cars. And so then the burden is put back on the state. And 2 years ago, they cut the budget for human services. So you're not accepting the money, you're cutting human services. So how are people supposed to live? So again, we are still in the fight. And what we have done is we created our own committees, and we have the media come in, we have the public come in, and we have specialists come in and speak to the issues, because they will not allow our bills or us to be heard in committee. They won't allow that bill to move forward for us to help our constituents. So they told us, and I have to say that, they told us this session, you will not be allowed to use any of the rooms for that. We are state representatives. We represent almost 60,000 constituents, each one of us. And you are tying our hands so we can't get the information out. We are informing our constituents, and we are still working and still fighting.
Thank you so very much for that, Representative Bazemore. Question here, how do you plan to support small businesses and entrepreneurs in creating jobs and stimulating economic growth?
So I'm glad you asked that question too. I have had events for small business owners down at the Capitol. When they come, they will receive information at the state level and from the different committees. And so they can talk and ask questions and get the information necessary for them to either start a startup or to continue with that information that they have. I am actually a conduit, so that if they need, let me back up, because anytime that I give my information out, it has my cell phone number, my personal cell phone number, because I know my bosses are the almost 60,000 constituents that I represent. And I want them to be able to contact me when they have a problem. And so this is how we work together, and I work with my colleagues. If my colleague is doing something that relates to small business, and we have all of us, a lot of us sit on Small Business Development Committee. So we work together to come up with a way to get the information out and to help each and every business thrive.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So the next question. Describe a time when you had to compromise on a policy issue, and how did you navigate through that situation?
I'm trying to find, I'm trying to find in my mind if I did compromise on an issue. I don't remember compromising on any issue that came up, because when I take a stance, my stance is for, again, my constituents. And so if I flip-flop and change my mind, then that means I am not standing for my constituents. And so again, I cannot remember a time that I've ever done that. And if I have, I always invite, if the perception is that I have, I always invite my constituents to please call me, to talk to me. And then if I have to, explain. And that's one thing that we say down there. When you vote or when you stand for something, you need to be able to explain that when you go back home to your constituent. It might be opposite of what everybody else is doing, but as long as you can explain it and you stand for your constituents, then you do what your district wants you to do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Here's another one for you. Should the state of Georgia expand voter access by allowing the same day voter registration, removing obstacles to voting by mail, and making secure ballot drop boxes accessible at all times throughout election day? If so, why?
And I'm so glad you asked that question, because as I said, I sit on governmental affairs and I hear these crazy ideas. And just as it was in SB 202, they dropped several bills into one. They did it again this year. I don't know if everybody's aware. They did it. They had several bills, and they had some that were unconstitutional. And in the meeting, I continued, because you have to be on record. I continue to say, we cannot move forward with this because this is unconstitutional. And it was verified. But they have to make sure that it is safe, and every constituent, every citizen has the right and the opportunity to cast their ballot. And if you want to really do that, then you would open it up so that you do have the same day voting, you have the same day registration. It is not that difficult, because most people have already voted in the early voting. So you just have those few. And it's just like when we had, like I said, when we had the ballot sent to us because of COVID, they had to adjust. You adjust, you make sure your constituents and your citizens are allowed to vote. In addition, I want to tell you, there has been a bill out there forever, even before I became a state rep, one of my colleagues, to allow people to go to any county to vote, not just your county, but any county, because you might work, you might live in the city of South Fulton, but you work in Atlanta, and sometimes you might not be able to get out in time. And so this way you can cast your vote in Atlanta.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to move on to the next question. Should the state of Georgia protect reproductive rights, reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring the protections of Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF, abortion, and other reproductive health care?
So let me say this, and I always say this before I start this conversation. I am not an advocate of abortion. However, just like God gives us a right to make our own decisions, who are we to impose our beliefs on other people and their bodies? Yes, we need to make sure, because women are dying at alarming numbers because you feel as though they should not do this because you don't want them to do this. I have not seen where we restrict men from doing certain things, but you are trying to tell women that they cannot go and seek. And this is a medical issue. It is, they try to make it out like it's a choice of this or that, but it's medical most of the time. And they need to make sure that these women, because they're in danger sometimes, and sometimes these births are allowing these women to be in a situation where they might die. But that is not a concern. And so what happens, I don't know if everybody's aware, there's an organization called ALEC. And what they do every year is they get together a whole laundry list of items, mostly a couple, that they want the Republicans to start introducing. And they come together like during this time of year. And that's why you see so many other states dropping almost the same exact bill throughout the country, because they are taking their marching orders, and this is what they have planned to do. So I believe that if you relax it, and you also said if we should address Roe v. Wade, that is a federal issue. So we can't do anything at a state level, but it has to be done at a federal. But it does not stop us from advocating. And we have been advocating, and we stand strong, and we have been having press conferences and sending out information to make sure everybody is aware and that we stay in the fight.
Thank you so much, Representative Bazemore. Now, I want to remind our listening audience as well as Representative Bazemore, our goal is to get to 14 questions, but now we're on number 7. So, so I don't want you to feel slighted if, in fact, we don't get to all 14. I just wanted to make you aware. Here's a question. What is your stance on comprehensive immigration reform, and how do you plan to address this issue in the upcoming session?
So again, immigration reform is a federal issue. However, I know many of you have seen our governor down on the borders. Don't get tricked. This is to lay a foundation for a further aspiration. That is actually what is going on right now. So don't be surprised when you see the governor running for something else once he leaves, because this is his last, he's lame dunk right now. So I believe what we can do here is make sure the laws that the federal government has are adhered to. Don't stop immigrants, questioning them just because you feel like questioning them. You cannot ask certain questions of these individuals. Other than that, we need to support our colleagues up in DC with regards to this issue.
Thank you, Representative Bazemore. So I'm going to ask you about the gun laws. And so should the state of Georgia protect Georgians from gun violence by banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines, closing background check loopholes, and passing other common sense gun safety reforms?
So when we saw that the governor was backing this and some of our colleagues dropped this legislation to allow people to have access to guns without background checks. I mean, we have to have background checks on a lot of things, but for an assault weapon, you do not have to have a background check, and you can kill several people. I don't know, every morning when I wake up, I am watching the news, and what do I see? These individuals were shot here. These individuals were killed with a gun here. It's like the Wild Wild West right now. And there are no repercussions, really. And so I don't understand the thought process that went into putting this legislation forward and not considering the fact that even though you think it might not happen to you or your family, it will. Just like it's happening in Atlanta in certain areas, Buckhead, people think they're safe in this state of Georgia. It does not matter where you live, as long as someone can get a gun. And now they can get guns online. They can build their own gun. No restrictions. We have to stop this now. However, a lot of people that are legislators are in the pocket of those that make the guns. They take contributions, they stand with them. And because we don't have the numbers and they do, they will continue to pass these egregious bills.
Wow, thank you so much, Representative Bazemore. My question is concerning insurance. As you know, Georgia has some of the highest insurance, especially when it comes to automobile insurance. Are there any steps that the House or that you can take as a representative to combat these costs, other than knocking on the door of the Georgia Insurance State Commissioner?
I'm so glad you asked this question because I actually had a bill to address this issue because my constituents have my number and they know how to contact me. They had asked me to tackle this issue. And so I did have a conversation with the commissioner. And I believe he took a portion because I needed to send him my bill because, as you know, if they're not in favor, your bill is not going anywhere. So he took a portion of it. One of the issues, the major issue, was the fact that insurance companies did not have to report or inform the commissioner's office that they were going to increase your rates. And so what my bill said is that, no, you need to report that in a form, and then there needs to be a period of time before you can go ahead and increase that rate. And so they kind of liked the bill, but then they kind of didn't. So they're trying to take pieces of it. And while I'm saying that, what you all need to know, despite the fact that we are not in control, our bills get stolen all the time, all the time. I was sitting on the floor of the House and I looked down at a new Republican woman in the well presenting one of my bills. And it was heart-wrenching because it had to do with something that I dealt with personally. And if you see it, and I'm going to tell you what it is, I was diagnosed in 2018 for colon cancer. Thank God I am free, I am healed. But because of that, I worked with C.E.E.L because I said to them, wait a minute, there are license plates, 4 license plates that are specific to specific cancers, breast and other things, right? I said, well, why don't we just have one that just says cancer so that everybody can purchase one and have the license plate if they want to. And that's more revenue for the state. So they decided to change the face of the breast cancer one, and they dumped my bill in that bill. And so I presented at the committee, thought I was going to present in front of the body, and I looked down and she's presenting both bills. Hurt me to my heart. And when I tried to speak, I tried to press my button to speak. And I'm on leadership. And the speaker totally ignored me because they knew. Ignored me totally. So those are some of the things that we're up against down there.
Thank you for that response. We really have time for one more question, and I think that puts us, at about 11 questions. But so this would be the last question. And it goes, should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing affordable housing, the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights, habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligence or abuse by property management companies or landlords?
So again, thank you for that question. I had the opportunity just recently on the 11th to speak at the Metro Housing Conference, Fair Housing Conference, and to advise and give information and get information as I sat there and listened. And yes, we need to make sure that housing is affordable. What I wanted to address before the time runs out is the fact that there was a bill introduced to strengthen the ability of renters to stay in their units and not be abused or, kicked out for no reason. So there was something presented for that. The other part of this is, as I said, this issue, we are in a crisis right now for housing. We have to get more houses. And I have been working with municipalities and different groups, the builders and everybody, to try to find a way that we can build and build affordable housing. And also what I found out in the presentation is that someone from Habitat from Humanity presented, and they said that they had a piece of property that they purchased, and I'm not going to tell you the county they were in, and they went through all of the rules, regulations, everything, and they were about to build. And then the community came out and said, not in my backyard. But these homes, they go for the market value. They are not flimsy. They're not, and our president, Jimmy Carter, was one of the ones that helped to build these homes with his wife. They said, not in my county, not in my neighborhood. So what had to happen? That Habitat for Humanity had to sell that piece of property because they could no longer use it to build. So these are some of the obstacles and some of the things, not just at the Georgia General Assembly, but these are in communities. Communities are saying, not in my neighborhood. And I only want a brick, and I only want you have to live a half an acre away from my house. So those are the things that we're dealing with. But if the municipalities would come together with us and we can work together, then we can build more houses, different kinds of houses. And then you have people that are senior citizens, seasoned, and normally they will downsize. But they can't downsize right now because if they leave their home, it's more expensive. Or if they find something, it's more expensive to move somewhere else. So they're staying in their home. So that's why you don't have, again, any other units on the market, because that home would go for like new homeowners, but it's not happening.
Right. Well, thank you so much for that response. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from State Representative, the incumbent, Deborah Bazemore, and she is running for re-election for State Representative seat, District 69, the new District 69. So now we are going to wrap this up, and you did have 11 questions, and so we didn't quite make the 14, but we hit the time mark. But what I'd like to do is give you 2 minutes to close out. Share with our listening audience a little bit more about your platform, how they can reach you, get in contact with you, how they can volunteer, donate, anything you'd like them to know. But go ahead and share that information, if you will. You have 2 minutes to do so.
Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate that. And again, I am a retired individual, and that gives me the opportunity and has given me the opportunity to be available to my constituents. And some of the things that I had not gotten to that I am working on is literacy. I am giving individuals the right to be able to, in the schools, to be able to write a book and get it published and illustrated. And my granddaughter was able to be part of that. And the book is now on Amazon. And the youngest child was 11 years, the child that wrote the book was 11 years old. So we talk about literacy all the time. The other thing, we talked about equal pay and auto insurance. And also I've sponsored a study committee on election integrity. I want you to know how to find me. My website is deborahbazemore69.org. And if you would like to make a donation, if you'd like to make a donation via Zelle, it's repdb63l@gmail.com or 404-922-5835. Cash App is repdb69. And if you want to mail a check, it's 7042 Galloway Point, Riverdale, Georgia, 30296. And I want to leave you with this. I do not have to get acclimated. I do not have to build relationships. I've already done that. I'm already doing the work and continuing to do the work. Some people think when you leave session after signing die, you don't do anything. I show up. I heard somebody talk about the North Fayette Community Association. I have spoken there several times, have been there. I am all over. And just because you don't see a person does not mean they are not working.
Thank you again, Representative Bazemore. Ladies and gentlemen, we have just heard from District 69, Representative Bazemore. The elected state representative will serve in the upcoming term, which starts January 2025. Their future, her future lies in your hand as a constituent and as a voter of the Georgia House of Representatives for District 65. It is our hope that you will use your vote as your voice to elect fair representation. Last time of election days, April 29th through May 17th is early voting. May 21st, primary election. June 18th is primary runoff election. October 15th through November 1st, early voting in person begins. October 25th is the last day to request an absentee ballot. October 19th, 20th, 26th, and 27th are Saturday and Sunday voting. November 5th is election day, and December 3rd is the general election runoff if necessary.
So ladies and gentlemen, as a resident of the Georgia House of Representatives, District 69, you owe it to yourself, your family, and your neighbors to help elect the next qualified public servant that will develop and govern this great House of Representative District 69. So in closing, we leave you with this. Go to the Secretary of State's website and download a copy of the precinct card. That's at www.sos.ga.gov/MVP. Know who is on your ballot because these district lines have been redrawn. This is a new district. Make sure that you go to the right precinct. And a part of that is know who is on that ballot, know what is on your ballot, know when to vote, and know where to vote. But more so than anything, please exercise your right to vote. Now I'm going to turn the forum back over to our host, Ms. Damita Chatman.
I want to thank everyone that came out, the listeners. I want to thank the candidates, thank Representative Bazemore. I want to thank my moderator, Kathy Adams, Pastor J.D. Flint. I want to thank, I'm going to call her Miss Queen. I want to thank Mr. O, and I want to thank the other helper. I also want to thank, I'm going to call her Deacon Jasmine. But most of all, I want to thank my husband for being there for me. Thank you. I know you don't want it, but thank you. And then mostly I want to thank the man of this house for allowing us to come in his house. And I'm going to turn it over to him and give the closing marks and prayer. Our next forum will be April 29th at 7 o'clock. And that will be the Fulton County Superior Clerks. Thank you, Pastor Chris.
Thank you, Sister Chatman, and thank you for the organizational skills that you all shown in pulling all this together. Thankful for all of the candidates, especially Sister for your longevity and patience here this evening. We're glad to offer our location for this series of forums and the different ways in which it's being expressed. And so, we are a house of prayer. We're in the community to represent the God of the Holy Bible. And so inasmuch, so I want to share scripture and then I'm going to pray. Psalm 127, 1 and 2 is a word that puts it all in the right perspective. Except the Lord built the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrows, for so he giveth his beloved sleep or peace. I want to share a couple of things just for stating with us, because I think it's real important. And one of the parts of my prayer this evening is a prayer of asking God to forgive people, even those that are not here to hear, that I'm praying for forgiveness for them. When we talk about respecting people and respecting property, we got to live out what we talk about. There are cameras everywhere, especially on this property. Now, somebody's going to get that word. So as I prepare to pray, we're not just saying we're a house of prayer, but every second and fourth Sunday for right now, you can come over and grab a cup of coffee. We'll pray with you or pray for you. Just drive through or walk up in the parking lot. And we're thankful to be able to offer that and grab some breakfast snacks. Father, we just thank you for this house of worship, for this faith community. We're thankful for the families that are located in and are to be served in District 69. We lift up to you every person who's presented themselves as wanting to be a representative servant for this area. And Father, you already know who you have to serve going forward. Your word declares that the heart of the king is in your hand, and you direct it like a river of water. So, Father, you direct this election. You know exactly what needs to be done. And dear God, even on this day, we know many actions have been taken, many things have been said, many things have been done. Not all have been pleasing in your sight. And so, Father, on these consecrated lands, in this consecrated building, dear God, that we have presented to you, we ask your forgiveness for those who have disrespected even others in this body. And so, Father, we thank you. Watch over every level of this electoral process. We thank you for these able moderators that have been toiling here. And so, Father, we thank you for this evening. Go with us. And we know that you watch over us. In Jesus' name, amen, amen, amen.
Pastor, you gonna get in this picture tonight?
Yeah, I'm gonna get in this one.
My. God got plans, so they might as well go on and do what they do. Yeah.
Yes, Lord, sister.
They can't do. They can't do, they can't do.
God knows.
God knows. I done told them, leave me alone. Yes, Lord. Lord, I'll just hang on in there. Yeah, hang on in there. Yeah.
You hang in there.
Oh, yeah, no other choice, no other choice. No other choice. Lord, we gonna take this stuff down and clean up. Ooh. Lord. My. My.
Coming up, doing everything nice. Coming back.